Welcome to the Austen Tayshus show, and my guest today is my good friend Rick Grossman, somebody I've known for 40 years, a bass guitarist and a bass human being. Not really, no, a good human being. But I just wanted to start by asking you, as myself, you grew up, I believe you grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, is that right?
I did indeed. Do you want to know my family? I think I was trying to think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
you and I think probably met. I'm pretty sure we met because I knew your name. Um, oh, probably when I was about 13. I'm pretty sure I'd
Oh,
heard
did
about
you?
you.
Well, my name got around. Yeah,
It was written on a
it was
toilet
yeah, that all that.
in a toilet block. It was.
It could have been my sexual proclivities, but yeah, no. So we definitely go back. But you grew up in Rose Bay, did you? Is that where you grew up? Yeah,
Yeah, Rose Bay and Paddington mainly.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and your family life was basically it's you and your sister and your parents. That was basically your family, wasn't it? Yeah.
My dad left our family when I was about 12. He was a Jewish man. Both my parents are from England, and my father's side of the family were Russian Jews. My mother was not Jewish, and because of my father's family's basically, but they basically rejected my mother. He really didn't like religion, so I know you take your religion from your mother, but I grew up in kind of a Jewish family that didn't want to be Jews. My father was not
Right,
really
right.
like that. I'm kind of a lapsed Jew, not like
Right.
you.
Yeah, fake Jew. But I'm happy. I'm happy. You're Jewish enough for me. So
T-shirt.
I don't want you to drop your pants now.
I'm getting a T-shirt that says "Fake Jew."
Fake Jew is good. Fake Jew is good. Fake Jews. Fake
Fake,
Jews.
yeah.
So, no, well, what? So your interest in music that must have started quite early. I mean, in your teens, did it?
Oh, yeah. My parents always had music on in the house. They love musicals. Um, I have a lot of memories of them having family sort of parties with My Fair Lady and West Side Story and various musicals playing, and all of them kind of singing along with these old musicals. And we always had music in the house. And I remember my dad gave me money to go and buy the White Album by the. Oh no, sorry, Sergeant Pepper. Um, yeah, both of them were always big music fans, and they encouraged me to play instruments, which I absolutely hated, violin and cello, and used to set my violin up in the kitchen at home when my mother was making dinner when I was about 10, and would sort of saw away at this horrible sort of instrument, and kind of, she'd be like this, trying to sort of um, make the vegetables, so it wasn't great. As soon as they stopped,
Well, we all. Yeah.
well, as soon as they stopped trying to make me learn a musical instrument, I started playing guitar.
It was bass guitar, was it, or was it just normal electric guitar?
We had a normal guitar in the house. I don't know where it came from, but it was just there. I have no recollection. Maybe someone just gave it to my parents. I don't know, but I started to mess around with that, and my interest in contemporary music. Well, look, my interest in contemporary music went way back because when I was little, I hated going to bed in the dark. I sort of had this sort of fear of the dark, and so my parents gave me this radio. It was one of those old big Bakelite radios, and I'd always have to have the radio on when I'd go to bed. So I remember very clearly all these really old songs, Under the Boardwalk, the Stones, and old Beatles stuff, and Jerry Lee Lewis, stuff like that. And I guess it
The
sort
light
of
from the light from the Bakelite radio. I just wanted to get on to that just for a sec. But the light from the Bakelite radio was an orange light, wasn't it? Hey,
that's right. Absolutely
and
right.
that was a And that was a very I used to love that too. Like, I mean, I still love that light when I'm in bed. That orange light it was very comforting. That's what it was.
That's right. Except my radio had this. It had a filter and it would fade out, and I'd get really scared when I'd hear the thing starting to fade out, and you'd have to bang it on the top, and it would come back. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I remember all.
So the music. So Otis Redding. Yeah, yeah. Go back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember all those old songs. Yeah, Dock of the Bay and you know, Waterloo Sunset by the Kinks. So I guess it sort of in my subconscious sort of got in there, and you know, it gave me a love of music, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this a bit later, but it seems appropriate now. The music of that time, from the 50s on, really, 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, I'm not talking about, you know, obviously the 30s and 40s right now, but when rock and roll started, and you know, subsequently to right to the late 70s, the music was of such high quality. What do you think what do you think the reason was for that? Why it was so great? You know, the stuff from our childhood
Well, you know,
and beyond.
well, before the 50s, before the early mid 50s, there was no such thing as a teenager. The teenager
Yeah.
invented in around 53 or 4, and it was kind of like our own music that our parents hated. So, you know, it was except my parents didn't really hate it, but they, you know, they had their own music, and we had ours, and I guess, you know, when you grow up with something, it holds a special place for you, and I think also, you know, near the source. I mean, the source of modern music comes from blues music and jazz music, essentially, and that was, you know, in the 1930s and 40s, I guess, and
That's
the
it. Back. Yep.
50s, you know, were the source. You know, they were those original artists that all those great bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and the Who and all those great bands that we grew up with listened to. So our age, we're kind of 2 or 1 generation away from the source. Now it's 8, 10 generations away from the source, and it's kind of different.
Yeah, but it's not as. I mean, our stuff is, you know, seems like it's going to last for a long time. It seems very memorable. I mean, any of those songs, you know. So I was just humming da 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 bam 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 yesterday. I mean, something like Cream is, you know, it's embedded in my consciousness, and it's so great though. All that stuff, you know, Deep Purple, all those fantastic bands. That's just doesn't. I mean, I feel sorry for my kids, you know.
Well, I mean, they probably have their own thing. I mean, I don't know. Look, I know that music was visceral for me. It's something that I find really hard to put into words. It used to affect me physically. Listen to Cream, for instance. I used to love Cream.
Yeah. First, but you know, just thinking, yeah.
One of the first songs that I learned to play and jam with other people were Cream songs, and I'd listen to those records, and something would happen to me. You know, it was physical. You know, it was. I just wanted to be part of that so badly. You know, to be able to create something like that. You know, and I also thought, you know, that to be a musician would make you feel great all the time. You would not have a problem in the world if you were a musician. And I found out that wasn't true. But you know, to do something that you know, you're a passionate guy. You do something that comes from your heart. You know what I'm talking about. When you do something that you just love inside, it's nothing better. I'm very grateful to be.
100%. I have the same reaction to music too. You know, when I hear something like Canned Heat going up the country,
yeah,
or any of, say Neil Young, Old Man Look at My Life, or whatever it is. But those sort of songs, they do have a very visceral effect on me. I just immediately get, it just takes me away. It takes me back there, when I see that, when I just watch the whole of Woodstock, the whole thing again, the whole 5 hours or whatever
Fantastic.
it is. 3 days, motherfuckers. And it just gets me. And I don't know if music today, if the popular music today is on that sort of level.
Yeah. Look, I
know it's no big deal.
Look, I have to be very careful. I teach at a university, and probably the worst thing I can say to an 18-year-old is, now in my time, they just shut down, but I must say that they, if I can encourage them enough for them to look at their history and look where all the music they love came from, like I did, they discover gems. I send them playlists, and they'll get in touch with them and I'll say, wow, I don't know, the Kinks, You Really Got Me, or the Animals, or whatever it is. They'll get back to me and they'll say, wow, that's amazing. I thought Oasis invented that, or I thought Tash Sultana invented that, or whoever, but yeah, it's good, it's music.
No, I agree with you. I don't know. Well, I don't give my child.
Right.
No, I was going to say. I don't give my children a hard time for listening to that shit. And I sit in the car and I want to kill myself, because they get in the car, they put on their whatever stupid song they want to put on, and I can't stand it. But I don't say anything.
Yeah. Oh, I just lost you.
Bob Dylan, Do you hear me or not?
Yeah, I can now. You just cut out. Yeah.
Oh, did I? Yeah. No, well,
I'm cutting out again.
Okay. Hello?
Well,
Hello?
I can hear you now, Sandy. It just cut out then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's keep.
You can't press these things, it'll change the things.
That's all right.
Hello, Rick?
Yeah?
Yeah, no worries.
I'm not going to get an ear infection. Yeah, well, I've got feces in my ear. Fecal material. No, it's okay. No, I have it. That's why I put it. Hello?
In our time, we would be in a room together, Sandy.
Hey?
In our time, we would be. In our time, we would be in a room.
We would have been, but we had a problem with the camera. That's all. But look, if it's no good, we'll do it again. So it should be fine. The actual recording of the sound is okay, right? Yeah. Got nothing to do with this, really. So yeah. Anyway, so he'll just cut it around. But anyway, so let's keep going on that thing for a little while. About the just because me playing my children the music, and you playing your kids all that. Let's talk about that a bit more, just a little bit more, because it's sweet,
Today is actually my daughter's birthday. She's 31 today, and I have great memories of making mixed tapes or mixed CDs when we'd go away on holidays, and both of them used to say, "Daddy, put that guy with the funny voice on." And it was Bob Dylan, and they grew up loving that music, Dylan and Neil Young, the guys with the funny voices, and they nowadays I think we were very fortunate that we didn't go through a lot of stuff that some parents go through, where I actually hated the music they liked. I mean, I remember my son saying to me one day at home, he said, "You've got to hear this. You've just got to hear this. This is unbelievable," and played a whole lot of love to me.
Your son what? You played to your son?
Yeah, he got very excited one day, and he said, you have to hear this song. And it was Whole Lot of Love by Zeppelin. And I actually had to tell him that I actually knew that song. But that song, I was sitting in Little Jerusalem, they used to call it, you know, the steps down at Bondi Beach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was sitting with some friends down there and someone had a radio on and a whole lot of love came on the radio. Everyone went quiet.
Yeah.
It was like, what is that? I don't know if that happens very much nowadays.
No, I mean that's an extraordinary song. That's such a great song. It's a great song.
Yeah.
But I experienced that.
I have memory.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Great memories, you know. I remember hearing "Hey Jude" for the first time at Nelson Park. Same thing on a radio, and wow, you know, just getting so excited. I heard. You remember "Classical Gas"? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
that
of course,
song?
of course.
Yeah, that was. I distinctly remember that. Every time I hear that piece of music, it reminds me of, you know, a certain place that I was when I first heard it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so there was. Yeah, well, that's right. So there was never any question in your mind about being a musician, getting involved with music, because it was something that you were totally passionate about.
I was. It was my godmother, who was an actress, who said to me, "You should do it as a career." I actually hadn't thought about that. I mean, I dreamt about it, but I actually hadn't thought about it. My mother as well said it to me, and I don't know. I just I wanted to be part of something. It's a bit different now, you know. There are a lot of session musicians now. Well, I wanted to be part of a gang, part of a band. That was my dream, to be part of a band and to be able to you know, travel and just play. And that there's this sort of mystery about being in a band. What's going to happen at the next gig? You know, maybe you get chased out to your car by an angry mob.
Well, as you know, that's happened to me 100 times. But I'm not part of a gang. I'm just Mr. Tayshus. So the first band was Matt Finish. Was that the beginning?
I started off playing in bands in Melbourne actually, and it was a bit of a mistake, the whole thing. And it's one of those things that, you know, in your lifetime, you have a few things that'll happen to you that you know, you have to take a risk maybe. And I'd been trying to when I left school, I'd been playing with various people. I'd never played really professionally for money, but we had a rehearsal room in Oxford Street, and there was a bit of a scene there, and different people would come and jam, and we'd play at parties. And actually, our drummer, who was in the Hoodoo Gurus for 28 years when I was in it, he was one of those people, and we just used to play at parties and try and find like-minded people. And there was, you know, a certain type of music that I really liked that wasn't really sort of all that common back then, and we were trying to find people who liked that kind of music. And I went to visit a friend of mine in Melbourne, and she was a family friend, and she rang me and said, "Bring your bass. There's a band down here called the Bleeding Hearts." And the Bleeding Hearts, I'd never heard of the Bleeding Hearts, and coincidentally that day when I went to the airport, I bought a Ram magazine. You remember Ram magazine? And there was an article on this band, the Bleeding Hearts, and I went down there and went to have a play with this band, and they were all quite a bit older than me, and you know, I had no idea who they were. They were all very well known in the Melbourne music scene, and I guess if I'd known their kind of status down there, I might not have even gone. But that band included Martin Armiger, who you know knew very well, and they asked me to join. They said, "We're playing 6 nights a week," and I knew one person in Melbourne. You know, it was kind of, I was only planned to go down there for a week, and I ended up staying for 3 years, and it was magnificent. You know, I had to learn how to, you know, grow up and look after myself, and you know, I got ripped off, and all sorts of stuff. I lived in a house with Paul Kelly and all sorts of people, and It was terrific, you know, and yeah, I played with many great people. Martin Armiger was a real mentor for me. He, you know, I just thought he was, you know, this amazing songwriter, kind of charismatic character. The scene down there, I'll tell you a little story just quickly. You know, I was obsessed with music, and all the bands that in the mid-70s that would be playing, I would go and see. I saw AC/DC and Skyhooks and Little River Band, but bands like the La-Di-Dahs and, you know, just everybody I would try and go and see. And, you know, I remember, you know, Skyhooks was so big in the mid-70s, and I remember seeing them standing outside the Bondi Lifesaver, and I thought, wow, you know, rock stars. And my first gig in Melbourne, they were all in the dressing room, all those people, you know. And I just couldn't believe it. They were coming over and saying, oh, great, you know, and shaking my hand. And you know, Greg McCainch from Skyhooks lent me his bass. And I got, you know, I knew Red Simons very well. He and I used to play Space Invaders together on virtually every night, and go to these coffee shops and play Space Invaders. But you know, it was like a bit of a dream come true for me. And yeah, I had 3 great years playing with great people down there.
So it was, we were playing with a whole lot of different people. But how did you end up in Matt Finish?
So in 1979, Midnight Oil started coming down to Sydney and coming down to Melbourne, sorry, and Rob Hurst and I just hit it off, and we became very, very good mates. And
he's the drummer in Midnight Oil. Yep.
Midnight Oil, and
for people who don't know, yeah.
Everyone knows him.
Yeah.
He and I became very firm friends, and he on one of his visits said, "Are you interested in moving back to Sydney, because we want to change our bass player?" And you know, I miss Sydney. I miss the lifestyle. And I grew up where around where you grew up, and the beaches, and I missed that. And he also said, you know, we earned $200 a week in Midnight Oil, which was just amazing. So I completely jumped the gun and came back to Sydney, and left the band that I was in down there, which didn't go down too well. But I got back to Sydney, and he basically said that I was too quick, and that they hadn't fired their bass player, and I needed to go off and do something to fill in some time. And actually Ivor Davies from Ice House, who I knew very well then, he told me about this band called Matt Finish, who were kind of like this little funk band that played down at the Rocks. And he said that they needed a bass player for 4 weeks because their bass player was sick. So I went and had a play with them, and off I went for 4 weeks with them to the Gold Coast for a Gold Coast residency, which is sort of akin to playing on a cruise ship, a Gold Coast residency, which is a kind of a story in itself. But anyway, you know, this sort of one of these unspoken magical sort of combinations happened in that band with me and Matt Moffat, the singer, and we really hit it off. I thought he was a magnificent songwriter, and still do. And the band's sound changed when I joined, and I don't know, I got back to Sydney and I saw Rob, and I said, look, I've fallen in love with this band, and we actually took on the angry young men sort of thing that Midnight Oil had in a way, but you know, we were kind of fiercely independent in Matt Finish, and we made a great record, made a couple of great records in that band, and played with Midnight Oil a lot in 1980, 81, and yeah, it was a fantastic time.
So the lead singer was Matt Moffat, and so why is it that a lot of bands have problems with their lead singer?
Well, you know, my wife calls people crazy creatives. I think, you know, some people, as you know, Sandy.
No, I know, I know. Well, I know the answer to the question, but I want to hear it from you. Well, you know,
maybe a touch of genius. There's madness that comes along with a bit of genius, and you get your control issues, and you get your kind of narcissism, and you get all sorts of stuff thrown in there. I think a lot of creative people who write songs want to hear what they're hearing in their head played by other people, and that's kind of impossible.
Yeah, but from a personal perspective, because the lead singer gets the girls and gets the attention and gets the this and that all that stuff as well.
Look, I've never had that kind of issue.
No, I know you haven't, because you're not that sort of person. But a lot of people in bands seem to have that issue.
I don't know. If you want to be in the spotlight, don't be the drummer. Yeah. I mean, don't be the keyboard player. If you want. I've always been very, very comfortable being part of something. The person who really instilled that in me was Martin Armiger, and he taught me about songs and being part of a song instead of being, the song being about you or whatever, being part of the song. And I've always been very comfortable in that. Of course, it's nice to get,
kudos.
Get rap. Yeah, it's nice. That's nice, but that's what I love, and it's probably one of the reasons why I've been asked to play with a lot of people, because I do that really well. Be part of something, and I can see a bigger picture than just my own thing. But look, all the bands that I played in, their lead singers have been, they've all had different things. And Matt Moffat had a mental illness. At the time, we were taking quite a lot of different substances like acid. There was a lot of acid around. And he was one of those people who took acid and didn't really come back. It really affected him in a very, very bad way. His mental illness progressed over the years, and today, I had quite a bit to do with him just before he died. And he passed away in about 2006. Oh no, 2004. And if the help that is around today was around then, he probably would have survived it. But the drugs and alcohol really, it was like petrol on a fire for a guy like him. And unfortunately, his creativity diminished as his mental illness got worse. It was,
So is that what happens? I mean, because a band like the Rolling Stones would have a lot of trouble coming up with a hit song right now, wouldn't they?
Yes.
And was like the Who. Yeah, like the Who or whatever. I mean, they were great songwriters 30 years ago, but writing a hit song today, Dylan seems to be able to come up with shit, because
he does. But he talks about the golden period. He talks about how artists will have their golden period. Dylan is just he's just a force in his own right. He's not. He always seems to sort of just do something completely different to what anybody's expecting. The Stones, well, who wants to hear a new Stones song? I'm kind of interested, but I love hearing, if I go and see the Stones, I don't want to hear all their new songs.
That's right, but there's a reason for that, because most of them are shit. But back then, hey?
But also, it's what we were talking about before, when you grow up and you have that time of your life when you're growing up and you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s, and music is all part of a big experience that you're learning about life. And, the Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup, Beggar's Banquet, those albums, no doubt, they were fantastic records. But, they were part of my life. They bring back a certain thing. And, that's what we do in the Hoodoo Gurus. People come up and say, oh, you're a big part of my, my growing up, and you're a big part of this or a big part of that, or, And I guess that's, that's what it's about. I'm always interested to hear new stuff from people, but, I haven't listened to a new Paul McCartney record for a long time.
No, but that's good. That's illuminating, though, what you're saying, though, because it is, because I wonder about that. I wonder if you're capable of writing a great song, Why can't you write a great song right now? You know what I mean?
But-
But I, you know, I mean, I know the reasons, but a lot of people don't really understand, you know, why. You know, he's like a one-hit wonder, mate, or something like that. You know, what do you come up with lately? What's your latest? You know,
well,
you're right though. It's of that time, and it's of that. You know, it's your experience. You know, and you're growing up, and all those issues. You know, with women, with drugs, with you know, with just maturity.
but you know, we're about to go into the studio next week and record a bunch of songs, and we're going to put out a new record. And why are we going to do that? I mean, if we think, oh, people really want a new Hoodoo Gurus record, well, probably that's kind of pointless. But we do it for us, you know. That the Rolling Stones would do it for themselves, you know. They don't, you know. I hope that our new record goes well, of course, but I don't really expect 19-year-olds to go out and buy a new Hoodoo Gurus record, you know. I don't really.
They're not buying records, really, are they? Well, they're streaming them, eh?
Yeah, stream or whatever.
Yeah,
you know.
stream.
You know, the Hoodoo Gurus are kind of a timeless band. They're a bit timeless, you know. We're not, you know, we're not that dated. A lot of kids, younger people seem to like us, but look, you know, I don't expect us to you know, be, you know, up there with Tash Sultan or anyone like that.
No, but you're a very the Hoodoo Gurus is a very unusual band for Australia. It's an experimental band. It's an artistic. You know, it's a very artistic. You know, everything about it's very artistic. You know. Anyway, but what about so Matt finished? You know, you finished with Matt Finish. In what year was that?
This was in 1981, and the band sort of burnt itself out through a haze of, you know, acid and speed, lots of drugs. You know, you've got to understand too. You know, this was a time. It was before AIDS. It was before, you know, way before the internet. But it was before, you know, the music industry in Australia was coming of age, and we were, you know, our road crew were all guys who had been in prison. You know, they were, you know, yeah, they'd drink on the way to gigs. Everyone would be drinking and carrying on, and you know, we used to play very well, and we used to have great gigs. But it was all, you know, we play 6 nights a week, and the whole big pub scene in Sydney was huge, and everyone was starting off. You know, Barnsey and Barnsey and the Hunters and Collectors, all these bands that were starting off. And, you know, the industry, it was a very, very exciting time for Australia. You know, my son says, oh, did you walk around going, wow?
Well, we shared a lot of common experiences in those days. It was incredible. You know, that's not going to happen again. I don't.
No, it's a different time. And, you know, after a year, in the end of 1981, I mean, we were just burnt out in that band. We'd had a very successful album, and we'd put out an EP, which was great. And but there was a bit of tension, and there was some physical altercations on stage in that band. We had a physical altercation on stage at Salinas in front of 2,000 people one night. It was unbelievable. But you know, it was. I know it sounds really corny to say this stuff, but it was like, you know, we believed so strongly in what we were doing, and we were serious. Well, you know, we were all really serious about what we were doing. It was all, you know, life and death, and it just got too much. And you know,
we were all young. We were very young. We were young, and you know, the world was new to all of us.
I mean, that band had an unusual thing where Matt Moffat, he was very, very charismatic guy, you know, and he was he had his family, had quite a large extended family, and they would travel with us wherever we went, and they would kind of sit around his feet. Oops, Were you okay?
What happened? What happened? Oh, that's okay. It's just something coming on the video. It's all right. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So large extended family. Yep.
They would sort of sit around Matt's feet, and Matt would have the bong or the whatever, and everyone would listen to what Matt said. And Matt would be completely out of it, and he had an incredible mind. And if you listen to the Matt Finish music, you listen to the lyrics. The guy wrote amazing lyrics, and they come from somewhere that I don't. It's kind of mental illness, It's amazing, incredible place that he used to write from. But it just got too much. And I one night we played up on the Gold Coast, and there was a big altercation in the band, and I was just sick of it, And our drummer and I walked for about 4 miles along this beach at about 2 in the morning, and we just talking and said, we've had enough, and got back to Sydney. And at the time it was kind of like, we'll take a break from it. And I went and worked on my parents had boats up in Airlie Beach, up on the Whitsunday. They had back then also up there it was like a wasteland. It was very quiet, and I worked on the sailing boat for about 5 months, and got healthy, mentally fit, and then I ended up in the Divinyls, which was
so. How did that happen?
Well, after Matt finished, I was very friendly with Joe Camilleri, and I wanted to play with Joe, and I'd done some recording with Joe, and we had kind of this vague plan. And so I went back to Melbourne, and I don't think I was only back in. This was the very beginning of 1982, and I knew the Divinyls because the Divinyls had played with Matt Finish quite a bit when they first started. And I'd always get there early if the Divinyls were playing with us to watch the lead singer. I thought she was fabulous. So I was in Melbourne, and I got a phone call from Vince Lovegrove, who you knew.
So he was the manager of the band at that time, was he?
Yes.
And the thing about Chrissy was, you loved Chrissy because of the theatricality of what she did.
She wasn't all that. No, I just thought she was. I thought she was a beautiful woman, and I thought she was very unusual, and thought the band. I love punk rock music, and they had that sort of punk rock energy, and they kind of had this element of unpredictability about them, which was kind of really exciting. And
well, there weren't that many female lead singers around then. There was Deborah Conway, there was Kate Sabarano, and Renee Gayer. I mean, Renee Gayer is a whole story on her own, but there weren't really that many. I mean, there's Susie DiMarchi. Was that the girl?
No, she wasn't around then.
No, that was later.
Yeah, so
there's a call from somebody. Is that you? Hello? I've lost Rick again. I've lost. You have to answer it or ignore it. Hello, Rick. You got me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you back. Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I'd been in Melbourne, and it was kind of funny because Vince called me, and he said that they were looking for a bass player, and so I came up to Sydney, and he met me and took me to the what pub was it on the north side? Not the Royal.
The Green Gate.
No.
The Royal.
Manly Vale Hotel.
Mona Vale, you mean Mona Vale, don't you? Manly Vale. Oh, I didn't even know that one. Yeah, okay.
It was a big one.
I probably played there and I've forgotten it.
And the Divinyls were supporting the Angels, I remember, and I went to see them, and they talked to them afterwards, and they said, "Can we have a play together?" So we went and had a play together, and we went out for this meal, and they told me later that they all had secret these kind of secret little movements. They were asking me questions at dinner, and if the answer was correct, they liked my answers, they would sort of move the pepper shaker, or they had all these secret. Anyway, that night it was funny. We all went afterwards. We all went to see the Pretenders, and ended up at a party with Chrissy Hind and Chrissy Amphlett, and yeah, that was my, and I got flack. I got flack from some of the Matt Finish people because they said I was selling out and joining a commercial band because the Divinyls had been on Countdown, and that was the big no-no, to go on Countdown.
So that was 83?
No, 82, beginning of 82.
Right.
Yep. And we played a lot in the Divinyls. We played all through that year, 6 nights a week, supporting everybody, playing our own stuff. And then we went off to New York in August of 82. And we went there for 4 months to make an album in New York. So that was pretty good.
And something happened there or not? Or something happened out of that? You started to get airplay in America?
Yeah, we got airplay.
What song was that?
Well, Boys in Town got airplay there. Science Fiction got airplay. They were on our first album. Later on, when I was in the band Pleasure and Pain, got quite a lot of airplay over there on the second album. And then, of course, later on, after I'd gone, they had,
Touch Myself.
But no, we toured relentlessly over there. Just one thing, when we were making our album, I believe that's when you made your video for Australiana, 82.
Yeah, that's right. No, we made it probably late 82, early 83, maybe. Something like that.
Because I still think that I would have been in your video if I had been.
You would have been welcomed into the video.
Because there are a lot of my friends, and Smilka and John Power and people who are in your video. I think I probably would have.
Yeah, and a lot of people have been forgotten, like Vince Sorrenti, people like that. People have disappeared. But there were a lot of people, a lot of personalities. But yeah. So the Divinyls. Then you came back to Australia and you stayed with them till what year?
1987.
1987, right. So you were with the band for 5 years, really, were you? Yeah.
Yep.
And we did that show together in Noosa. You want to talk about that for a second?
Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, you tell the story of us together and whatever, because that's interesting too.
Well, we were playing at the Noosa Showground, and it was, I believe, the Angels, the Machinations, the Divinyls, about 5, and there were 5 or 6 bands on. There were like 15,000 people at the Noosa Showground. And that time, and that was 83, Queensland was a police state, Joe Bajelki-Peterson. Every time you would go there in a band, you would get searched. You'd get pulled over by the police and searched. And at that show,
now you've got to be carrying a virus to get searched.
That's right. At that time, I remember you coming up to me at the gig, and you were the compere of the gig, and you said to me, "I've never performed in Queensland. Do you think I should tone it down?" And I said, "I don't know." And you were sort of a bit concerned about it. Anyway, you walked on stage and you said, "Give me a J." The crowd, J. Give me an O. O. Give me an H. H. What does it spell? Can't. There was a great big police presence there, and all the police, sort of their heads suddenly swiveled towards the stage. There were a lot of police on the side stage, and I distinctly remember you saying, "That's a bit unfair, having a shot at old Joe. I quite like Joe. On the other hand, I like rooting me grandmother." And I wish I had the photo, because I have photos of you performing, but I distinctly remember you sitting in a chair with sunglasses with about 3 or 4 police standing around you, all pointing their finger at you, talking to you after you'd come off stage. That turned into a pretty amazing weekend with you and I and John Power and Richard Harvey, where we got asked to leave maybe 4 restaurants in Noosa because it. Remember one guy coming over and saying, "You can stay, but this guy's got to leave." When you stood up in the middle of a restaurant called Rio's and started shouting, "Rio's, the food here is very bad." Remember that? And
I can't remember anything, as you know. I can't remember.
My wife ate at Rio's, and it hit her shorts in half an hour.
Yeah.
Were you shouting that in the restaurant?
That was from Billy's record there from Peter's. Well, food here is very bad.
Yeah, food here is very bad. Yeah, so it was great. We had a great time, and you know.
So did I tour with you ever again, or did I ever do any other stuff with you? I can't remember.
We did a couple of other things. I think we did one in Sydney actually, where you were the compere, but no, not really. I don't really.
And Narara, were you at Narara? Did you do Narara?
We were at Narara one year in the Divinyls.
So 83 or 84, you don't remember?
We were there in 83.
Yeah.
1984 was the year that they had the international bands. They had the Talking Heads, Pretenders.
Yeah, I was the host of that Narara 84 as well. I did the 3 days, motherfuckers, all that stuff.
Well, we had as the Divinyls used to do, we put someone's nose out of joint to do with that festival, and they offered us a really shitty spot to play, like 2 in the afternoon or something, just a crap, The year before we'd had an 8 o'clock at night spot, but they offered us a crappy spot expecting us to sort of relent, but we didn't, so they threw us off the show. And that night, I was friendly with a couple of the guys in the Pretenders, and their drummer, Martin, invited me to go with them to that show. So I went out with them in the bus, and Chrissy Hine got on the bus, and someone must have told her I was in the Divinyls. There was all this stuff in the press that the reason why we weren't playing was because Chrissy Hine refused to play on the same stage as Chrissy Amphlett, which was just rubbish. And she kind of came and sat down next to me in the bus and attacked me. And when I told her what had happened, it was lovely. She got up on stage that night and dedicated their set to us. She said to the crowd, "This is for a band that should be playing here tonight," and it was terrific.
Well, that's nice. That was at Narara 84.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were there too.
I was there, and
that was a wild thing. That thing.
Yeah.
So and what happened? So how did you get into the? So how did you get into the Hoodoo Gurus?
Oh, a lot happened between the Divinyls and the Hoodoo Gurus.
Yeah. You mean in the band the Divinyls? You want to still talk about the Divinyls?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that was a volatile band as well, and
so there was a lot of friction, I believe, between Chrissy and Mark McEntee. Is that right or not?
And they were having a relationship too, so it was double barrel. They were the songwriters, and we my friend in that band, we shared a room, was Richard Harvey, who, as you know, is one of the most laconic sort of people you can meet, who just sort of if you can't laugh at it, it's not worth doing. So, he and I sort of, we shared a room, and we had a love of the same sort of drugs. And, people don't realise that, in the 80s, when you would go on tour in America, there was no internet, obviously. And you'd go and stay in these hotels in Nebraska or Oklahoma, or you'd be out on the road. You'd try and make a phone call home to Australia. You had to go through the operator in the hotel, and they had no idea how to do it. And so you would have these long periods of time with no contact. And so it used to feel, you'd be out there kind of isolated. And we used to have mail drops. I mean, people used to write. We used to write letters, and people would write to us, and they would write to the record company, to the address in New York, and then people from the record company used to come out and come on the road with us for a week, and they'd bring the mail, you know, and I mean, incredible stuff. But we'd be there for 6 months at a time, you know, on a bus and traveling, and you know, just, you know, I mean,
and quite often it would be pointless. We wouldn't do anything for your profile or whatever, would it?
That's how you did it, you know. That's how bands relentlessly toured. That's why people, they didn't have, you know, all their relationships messed up, and you know, you just away from home for so long, and you start to sort of, you know, take coke or whatever, you know, to try and keep going. And you know, it's after the gig, you know, people would come backstage, and you'd be drinking and carrying on, and you know, next morning you'd have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and 9 o'clock, and get on the bus and do a, you know, 400-mile drive. And I mean, it was, after a while it gets to you, and
it gets to you. I mean, what happens is you get exhausted. You just get exhausted.
Yeah, but you know what? It does this thing. You know, I remember reading, you know, these interviews. There are people like Guns N' Roses and Nirvana, Pearl Jam. Various people talk about the Australian sound, that bands from here have a certain sound. That sound is born out of, you know, playing in those pubs and just playing relentlessly. Like when you used to go and see those English bands who were really big, Flock of Seagulls or whoever, you know, around that time, they were crap. You know, Billy Idol, you know, just, they weren't good live, you know, because they didn't have that relentless sort of live thing, you know. And as you know, you go out to those pubs in Australia, go out to the Comb and Cutter at, you know, Blacktown on a Saturday night. If you don't deliver to them, they'll throw shit at you. And you know, so you know, we were kind of a really good live band, and the same goes for the Hoodoo Gurus, and Matt Finish, you know, really good live bands, and all those artists who came up through that time, even, you know, your Paul Kellys and your Crowded House and all of those, they're very good live, and because they project into the audience. They're not introspective. They project into the audience, and they have to grab the audience's attention. Otherwise, they just throw stuff at you. And back then, it was glass. Glass.
Well, of course. I mean, I've worked behind chicken wire on numerous occasions. At like 2 o'clock in the morning in some fucking toilet in Melbourne.
Yeah, of course.
But, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about, and a lot of comedians who, you know, go from television to a theatre have no idea what live performance is really like, and they just talk about us as dinosaurs, but in fact, it's a fantastic training ground. All that stuff is a terrific training ground.
Yeah,
and we all had it. I mean, the bands had a distinctive thing about them. Men at Work, any of them, they all came up from shitholes, you know, basically, touring shitholes relentlessly.
Yep, that's right. And, you know, I mean, I think, you know, I try and pass that on to some musicians today. It's very difficult, you know, to try and get them to, understand what it's like to play for an hour and a half in a furnace, you know. There's no OH&S. There's no, you know, I mean, it was nuts. You know, it was nuts.
Completely nuts. And also the audiences were very, very ferocious back then. It was, you know, it wasn't, now I find a lot of the audiences are fairly placid, actually, you know, even, you know, for a one man and microphone and light, and they're much different than they were. They're much more sedate. I just say, I mean, I want to talk about the Divinyls. The Hoodoo Gurus, because it's a great band, the Hoodoo Gurus, but it's a very distinctive band, if you know what I mean. So it's a very unusual band. In a way, you could compare it to Metal as anything. Couldn't you? Would you make that comparison?
Not really. No, not.
Well, they were arts. You know, they were all art students. I mean, I know that you're not, but I mean, it was a very artistic, you know, particularly from the beginning. That's the only comparison I'm making. You know, I mean, the music obviously it's much more rock and roll than Hoodoo Gurus, but it's still, I mean, it's a very it's an artistic band. It's unusual for that reason.
They're great songwriters in Mentals.
Yeah.
Under the songs, I think, you know, that people write great songs. You know, Reg and Pete, I love Reg and Pete. Greedy was a great songwriter, and Martin's a great songwriter. They're all, you know, and they all have that sort of warped sense of humour and that kind of. I mean, Reg is, you know, see it in his artwork. It's just magnificent. It's they're a very unusual band. You know, we have in the Hoodoo Gurus, we have a very different mixture. You know, some people look at us and think we're a kind of just a rock band, but we've got a lot of different stuff in there going on. You know, there's kind of pop, 60s pop, and there's punk rock music, and there's old 50s rock and roll stuff going on. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on in there. And Dave Faulkner, our singer, he's just, you know, he's one of the great Australian songwriters. He really
100%,
is.
100%.
He's still doing it. You know, we've just been rehearsing and we're recording next week, and you know, same thing. You know, he'll come into rehearsal and he'll pull out a song, and it's a sort of half-written song, but you just know that it's, you know, it's just a magnificent song. He's got.
You know, but you've had a lot to do with good songwriters in your career, and you know, and you're very good friends with Colin Hay, who's a very interesting and quite unique rock and roller, isn't he? I mean, he's got a great sense of humour. He's very charismatic, and you're a big fan, aren't you, of Colin Hay?
One of the great things I think is to go and see a live show of Colin's. I mean, his storytelling is one of the funniest people, next to you, of course, Sam, but one of the funniest people you can see. You know, it's just the way he tells stories is magnificent. His songs are fantastic. His lyrics are fantastic. Yeah,
but also he's, you know, it's quite artistic. You know what he does. It's unusual. It's unusual for them to have become as big as they became, because, you know, you remember all those early clips. They were really like the Mentals a little bit. You know, a bit like they had that sort of vibe about them. You know, they were out of the box, one out of the box, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I have this memory when we went to when we went to record our album in the Divinyls, 1982. My first night in New York, the record company took us out to a club, and I've walked into the club, and Colin Hay was sitting in a booth, and he could hardly speak. He was just shaking his head, and because I knew Colin. Yeah, I remember Men at Work used to drive around in his little van, and they had Men at Work stenciled all over the van, and I felt sorry for them. They'd come up and play at the Mansell Room in Sydney, and I thought they were a reggae band. And
that was when they were playing it. They had that residency at the Cricketers' Arms, wasn't it, in Melbourne? That was that sort of time frame. Yeah.
And you know, it's so funny. I remember when in Matt Finish, actually, we were signed to CBS. And Men at Work was signed to CBS, and one of the executives took Matt and I into a room and said, "You've got to hear this song." And they put on "Who Can It Be Now?" And I remember Matt and I going, "That's Men at Work." And this guy's saying, "This band is going to be the biggest band in the world." We're like, "You're out of your mind."
Who knew? Who knew, right?
Yep, that's right.
But anyway, I was just making that. But we have to finish up in a second here. But I was just making that comparison. You know, Men at Work. Men at Work. I just lost my earpiece. But so Men at Work. Mentals, Hoodoo Gurus. Is there some connection in your mind with that or not?
Really? I mean, we're a friend.
Yeah. But I mean, there was a bent. There was a bit of a. No, I just mean from the point of view of the artistic sort of, you know, it's different than a band like, say, you know, the Angels or, although Doc had those sort of pretensions a little bit, but Doc was into German expressionism, you know. But anyway, but Dave's a great songwriter. I mean, and I mean, it's a hippie sort of a band though. That was the vibe initially, wasn't it, or not?
A what?
A sort of a hippie band, a bit of a hippie band. No, huh?
No.
All right. So
No.
no, I don't know. So tell me, how do you?
Rock. Punk rock.
Punk rock. Okay. What the fuck do I know? But I'm Michael Parkinson. But yeah, go on. So talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of, that they were the influences of the band, sort of psychedelic punk, garage rock from the America. That was the sort of the
So Velvet Underground, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Lou Reed, David Bowie.
Yep.
Yeah,
Lou Reed. Dave and Brad, they're like music professors. They're incredible listening. Their knowledge of 60s music, especially, is incredible. And also, all the stuff that we talk about, all the great sort of TV shows from that era, and cheap science fiction movies, all those 50s, crappy science fiction movies that are just magnificent these days, and Get Smart, and McHale's Navy, and all those shows that were Jewish writers, as we say, but that sort of stuff, Blazing Saddles, Dr. Strangelove, all of that stuff. That's the Hoodoo Gurus. We
so
have that.
It's popular culture. That's what it is. Popular culture.
Yeah.
Eh? Yeah.
We call it the Jack Benny raised eyebrow. The way you look at things and just be bemused by what by humanity, by what's going on. And I think with the Hoodoo Gurus, we take our music very seriously, and the rest of it, you just have to have a bit of a raised eyebrow about it, about the whole thing,
Yeah. Well, that's right. You're certainly not an up yourself band. I mean, there are bands that are like that. The Divinyls probably were a bit more up themselves in that sense.
Maybe. Not Chrissy so much, but maybe, yeah.
Mark McIntyre.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean,
so listen, we got to wrap it up in a second here, but it's been really good talking to you. We can do another session, but it's good. I mean, looking back over your career so far, because you're obviously in going into your next phase of your career, but going. I mean, it's been a great life, hasn't it? I mean, you've had a great life in rock and roll.
I always think, how lucky I am to be able to make a living from something I love doing. The only time I've ever done something purely for money, it blew up in my face. And that was working with Shannon Knoll. And lovely guy, nice guy and everything, but, that whole Australian Idol thing, that it was just not my thing, and I did it purely for the money. It was really good money, and it was a disaster. I mean, I played with Colin Hay, I played with Jimmy Barnes, and I've done it because of friendships, and Jimmy's solo music, maybe not my favourite type. I think he's got some great songs, but I love him as a guy, and same with Colin, and I've been very fortunate to be able to make a living from doing this.
Something you love. Yeah. Well, I've only had one very nasty experience working, just for money, and that was doing a show with George Smilovich once. That was I mean, that was something. Somebody offered me $300, and I thought, who is the fifth support act? And they said George Smilovich. And I thought, sorry,
was that last week?
No, it's on Monday. And and I knew, I could feel inside that it was not the thing to do, but I went for the $250.
Well, George, I remember George from growing up as well.
Yeah. It's not a pleasant thought.
I just remember him telling me once that I was learning guitar, and he told me that he was a guitarist, and he told me that I should get into some Indian ragas if I want to improve my guitar playing.
Well, he went a long way with his guitar. Anyway, Rick, lovely talking to you. And
there's some other stuff that we didn't really talk about, and maybe we can talk about that another time.
Yeah. No, we'll do part two, the Rick Grossman part two interview. It's always lovely talking to you. See you soon.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye. All good. I enjoyed that, mate. It's great. I'll see you soon. We'll do breakfast.
Thank you, Rick.
He's going to edit it. Yeah. He'll edit it.
We didn't talk about any drug stuff, you know. I thought
I didn't want to right now. But you know, if you're comfortable, we'll talk about it in part 3. We'll just do a whole show just on heroin if you want.
Well,
we could easily do that. Anyway, mate, I've got to go now, so I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.
Arrivederci. See you soon. I'll be in touch. Bye, mate.